All right, guys. So today's video, I want to talk about my issue with powerlifting. And this isn't with lifting in general. This is specifically with the sport of powerlifting, competing in a powerlifting meet. What is my problem with it, you might be wondering. And it's not going to be what you guys think. So stick around here, and I'm going to get into that. So a lot of people over the years, there's been a lot of criticisms as far as powerlifting judging at big meets specifically, where there's been world records passed where someone clearly squatted high, or there was a clear deadlift that wasn't locked out, or something along those lines, and it broke a record or whatever, and inconsistencies in judging. And that's kind of what I want to get into, but it's different, and I'll tell you why. So my issue isn't so much that. My issue is that judging specifically on a local level. So most everyone who competes, 99% of those who compete are competing on a local level at a meet that's in their area, whatever. They don't even care what federation it is. It could be Powerlifting America, it could be USAPL, it could be USPA, WRPF, USPC. It could be any of those. It doesn't matter. Most of you who compete in a powerlifting meet are going to do so based on what's around in your area, whatever's convenient. So on a local level, my issue is that the judging is often too strict. You heard that right. So, like I said, outside of the elite competitors, the John Hacks, the Jamal Browners, the guys who compete at these major meets like the Ghost Clash and Hybrid Meet and all that sort of stuff, those meets, there's a lot of records at stake. They tend to tighten things up a bit in some circumstances. Sometimes they don't. But I get that. I get that there's a higher standard to a degree. My issue is when you're doing a local meet in your area within a couple hours drive or whatever, it seems that a lot of these judges almost have like an agenda where they want to be as strict as possible. And I think it's bad for the sport. And I think it's bad for the sport because I'll have guys train for a meet for 6 months or a year, and then to have these people go into a meet and get essentially jobbed on a ticky-tack call is it's very frustrating. It's frustrating for the athlete. It's frustrating for the coach. I think it doesn't encourage people to compete when they know they're going to put in all this work for a long training cycle to get a lift stolen away, essentially, on a ticky-tack call. Like, I get the egregious misses. I get the, clearly high squats. I get the clear hitched deadlifts and the things like that. Like, if I were judging, I'm going to get on my soapbox. If I were a judge, I would, I used to think initially when I thought about this question years ago, I would think I'm going to be the strictest judge possible, and I want to make sure people are adhering to a high standard. And I thought that was the way to go, even in my own head. I never judged, but I've obviously been in the powerlifting game for almost 17, 18 years. And I thought, man, that'd be the way to go. Like, be really a stickler judge, hold people to a high standard. I've seen USAPL meets where they call every freaking person on depth. Everybody. Be like a guy who's clearly below parallel by 3-4 inches. And they're like, oh, it's a side red. I don't know. You didn't, sit on the floor. And that's ridiculous. That is what's bad for the sport. This whole crap about let's make it as strict as possible because we got to enforce a high standard. We got to be that. You just turn people away. Nobody wants to compete. Why would I want to put in all this work for you to steal lifts from me? That's ridiculous. So these borderline calls it's not okay, in my opinion, for them to be red lighting everybody. And if you've never competed, this might be over your head, but I think those who compete progress better and do better in the long term than those who don't compete. Like, if competing does something where it dials you in, your training is that much more dialed in. You make that much more progress. So I think competing has a ton of value. But why would I sign up for meets where I'm going to get basically screwed? So that's where I think we need to. And if you're a judge out there, I think it makes sense. Like, if I were a judge now, I'd be like, I am going to give the lifter the benefit of the doubt unless it's an egregious error. And we've had people from our gym. We just had maybe 12 to 15. I don't know the exact number. We had 12 to 15 of our lifters at my gym, Coa Strength and Fitness, that I own with my wife. They competed at a meet down the road here in USPC. USPC obviously being a federation that branched off of USPA. And the calls were very fair. You didn't feel like anyone was going to get red lighted unless it was egregious. And some of you may say, well, that's ridiculous. You're just passing every lift. And my point is, if it's egregious, obviously if it's clearly a high squat, they're going to red light you. And they did at the meet. Some of our people were red lighted on their thirds for clearly being high on the squat. Understandable. But when it's a borderline call as far as depth, I feel like that benefit should go to the lifter. When it's, I had a guy compete this past weekend, and that's kind of what stemmed this idea in my head. And his third deadlift looked 100% legit to me. I watched it over and over. He got called for like a ramp and soft knees. And I'm watching this, and I'm like, I don't see it at all. I've been in this game a lot longer than most of these judges, in fact. I don't see it at all. I wasn't there. I'm obviously a little biased, but when I see a call like that, I'm like, what more do they have to do? I've seen squat calls where people are red lighted where they're way below parallel. And I'm like, what more do they have to do? I've had guys who were competing USAPL, and they were getting, essentially red lighted sometimes for clear depth squats, and they were like, I'm done with this and stuff. So some of these calls, I'm just like, it almost feels to me like the judge's ego is getting in the way, where the judge feels like, I got to be a stickler judge. That's ridiculous. You just dissuade people. So my point is, if powerlifting wants to grow and get more of the common folk into it, you gotta have some, give the lifter the benefit of the doubt. It's like in the NFL. If it's a 50-50 ball, a 50-50 call, 50-50 catch, they're going to give it to the receiver. They're going to give it to they're going to give them the first down or whatever. It's when it's egregious, they don't. So it's like, I think this whole thing about having a point to prove and trying to be as strict as possible with the judging just shines a bad light on things. And it gets people where there's no incentive to compete. Like, I want to compete where I feel like I'm going to get judged fairly, not where I'm like going to have to go to this insane standard to make absolutely perfect lifts. That's ridiculous. And that's why a lot of people are leaving the sport. So I feel like powerlifting popped a couple years ago in terms of popularity. It exploded. And I feel like now it's almost a little on back, trending back down, where people are just lifting for strength in the gym as opposed to actually wanting to compete. And part of that's the market's very saturated with powerlifting meets. Part of that's everything in general has gotten more expensive. People don't want to spend the money on that. But I think this is also a big part of it. Where's the incentive if you feel like you're not going to get judged fairly? Now, one last thing, guys. Stick around. Bear with me if you could. Check out my sponsor, Barbell Apparel. I've been with these guys for almost a year now. They support the channel. They've been great to me. I love their stuff. Like, it's my whole wardrobe, truthfully. The sweatshirts are comfy. We got the collab shirt they've made with me. I've got all the shorts I can run in without chafing, which I've never been able to do. So I love all their stuff. Check them out. They're having I think it's 33% off sale on jeans right now. Lifetime guarantee. They've been an amazing sponsor. They support me. They support the channel. And literally, it's the comfiest stuff. It's all I wear. So check them out. Appreciate it big time. Pick up a shirt, the Pete Rubish Bighorn collab shirt. It supports the channel and supports me. I'll link that up. Thank you guys so much, and continue to watch. Appreciate it.